Hello, welcome to the Comic Book Commentary. I'm Bo Leidig, and this week we're going to be continuing our retrospective look at the Violator vs. Badrock miniseries with Violator vs. Badrock number 2. So let's zoom in and take a closer look. First published in May of 1995, we can see here this Rob Liefeld cover featuring the newly introduced angel Celestine prominently right in the center in between the face of both Badrock and the Violator. It looks pretty good. Celestine, obviously, we just met her in the previous issue, and she is on the warpath on a quest to kill the Violator, as he, of course, is a demon from hell. It's kind of her job, but she's also an angel that seems to go well above and beyond the necessary channels to finish the job. Also, if you haven't watched my video on the first issue of the Violator Badrock miniseries, I suggest you do so before you watch this video, because otherwise the story points in this video aren't going to make sense at all. Writer, Alan Moore. Penciler, Brian Denham. Inker, Jonathan Sabal. Colorist, Donald Skinner. Color separations, Extreme Colors. Letterer, Associate Editor, Kurt Hathaway. Editor, Eric Stevenson. Badrock, created by Rob Liefeld. And strangely, no credit that's given to Todd McFarlane for creating the Violator, which seems odd. On the first page, we see that the angel Celestine is still moving through the facility, and when she's confronted by Dr. McAllister, who is the person in charge of the facility, she just swipes the doctor to the side. I'm not really certain what McAllister thought she was going to do to stop her, given that she had already seen Celestine murder several guards at this point, but she thought she was going to stop her somehow. And the entire time, this is all being narrated by the Violator, who states that angels are a beautiful, powerful thing that are best observed from a distance, like Hiroshima, which, of course, he's going to try and bring it back to one of the most horrible tragedies in the history of the modern world, because, I mean, he's a demon from hell. That's the kind of thing he's into. We then find out that Violator's narration is actually a conversation that he's having with Badrock as he continues to try and convince Badrock to set him free. However, Badrock wants none of this, as he tells him to shut up, that he has no intention of freeing this hell beast, but he's also kind of upset about the fact that he's got to deal with Celestine, as he states that this whole holy war was not part of his contract. However, Violator, of course, is relentless in trying to convince him that he's no match fighting this angel on his own, and tells him that he needs someone who's as powerful as Violator and as experienced in dealing with these heaven creatures in order to succeed in victory. But Badrock is, of course, still telling him, there's no way I'm going to set you free. I can deal with this woman in 1 or 2 minutes. However, Violator states, in 1 or 2 minutes, we're both going to be meeting gods, so what exactly do you think you're going to do here, and what's your choice on letting me go? And I'd also like to point out, I feel like Brian Denham kind of dropped the ball, or at least took a lot of shortcuts in illustrating this issue. As you can see, the background in this panel is just black, which is fine. It kind of sets an ambiance, but look at all this empty page here, and these 3 panels could have easily just been stacked straight up on this side of the page, allowing us to see all of the artwork underneath. That doesn't make sense. And you'll also notice Violator's head is just kind of floating here. We don't see his body behind it. Same thing, the black right behind here. And of course, the close-up on his eye, that's fine. But it's going to get a lot more noticeable as the book goes on, and I'll point it out where I see it. Violator remains steadfast in his quest to be freed as he continues to try and convince Badrock to let him go, telling Badrock that Celestine is not going to stop at just killing him, but she's also going to kill everyone else in the Institute and then burn the Institute to the ground. As we see her moving through the Institute, she enters the room with the interdimensional gate device that Dr. McAllister designed and built, and walks up to it, approaching it, seeing that she, in fact, has a machine that can open a portal to other dimensions, including hell, and that Violator is probably the most likely power source for it. Violator continues to tell Badrock that, everyone here is going to die, including the beautiful little doctor that Badrock has a crush on. And Badrock asks, why would she do that? I thought angels were the good guys. And Violator's like, no. They're not the good guys. They've got their own prerogative. And one of their prerogatives is making sure that the human world doesn't have a way to open a gateway to hell. And that Celestine is going to make sure that anyone who has the ability to do this and restart this project dies to make sure that it never happens. He then tells Badrock that this is the last chance he's going to have, as they can both feel her getting closer, and that he's got to make a decision right now if he's going to free Violator so that he can save everyone in the Institute, or if he's going to try and fail against Celestine on his own, as we see more guards doing their best to try and repel the angel. However, they're failing miserably as their weapons have no effect. We also see Celestine picking up the homing orb that will be used to make sure that they can get back to where they left from on Earth after they move through another dimension, or at least that's how it's supposed to work. Again, all of Dr. McAllister's technology is technically still theoretical, as she's never had the ability to actually test any of it out. On the next page, we see a lot of negative space not being filled up, several panels with no backgrounds at all, just like we saw on the previous page, especially with Celestine. There was nothing behind her at all. However, the story continues as Badrock finally relents and believes that in order to keep the Doctor safe, he has no choice but to free the Violator, as he very reluctantly undoes his shackles and brings down the plasma field that was containing him. As Violator is freed, he states that, this is great now, he's free once again. But Badrock tells him, don't get too comfortable. Once you defeat this angel, I'm going to take care of you and put you right back where I got you out from. He also tells Violator to not to get too comfy and believe that he likes him or anything. He hates all this supernatural stuff and has ever since he was a kid. And that the only reason he set him free was because he really believes that Dr. McAllister is in danger. However, their conversation is interrupted by loud sounds coming from outside of the room, as they realize that the angel Celestine is upon them and they have to prepare for battle. Badrock then states, "Oh man, it's her outside of the door. I guess all that stuff they taught me in Catholic school was all true." And Violator's like, "Oh, you mean all this good and evil?" And Badrock's like, "Oh yeah, the struggle for our eternal souls, all that kind of stuff." As we see Violator start to transform back into his clown form, he states, "Oh yeah, I mean, sure, it's all true, I suppose, but I find it kind of boring and I could use a change." And then Badrock turns around to see Violator in his clown form. Now, keep in mind, Badrock had no idea that Violator could change forms like this. So when he turns around to see the clown, he thinks it's a completely different person. He runs over and grabs him by the shirt and states, "Hey, where the heck did that other guy go? Who are you? What's going on here?" And, Violator plays dumb and is like, the other guy, he's gone. He and I have kind of a timeshare agreement type of thing. And Badrock's infuriated and is like, "What are we supposed to do now? I've got to fight this angel." And suddenly the whole thing is interrupted when we see Celestine blast through the wall of the room that they're in with some sort of energy staff that we've not seen up until this point used by any of the other angels. And things are not looking great for Badrock, as he's kind of having to deal with the entire fury of heaven right in front of his face all by himself. After Celestine enters the room, she's confronted with the image of Badrock holding a clown man who's not very tall above his head with one hand, as Violator in his clown form says, "Oh, please, miss, the demon, you've got to stop the demon." And then Badrock, somehow forgetting that the plan was for him and Violator to team up to defeat Celestine, says, "You know what? Yeah, you do got to take care of the demon." But then Violator, in another act of his cunning wit, states, "Yeah, this big, gray, ugly demon, you got to take care of him. He's going to kill me." And Badrock is like, "Wait, huh?" Celestine wastes no time in jumping into action, assuming that Badrock is in fact the demon she's here to kill. As we see Violator in his clown form hit the deck, Celestine leaps into action, hitting Badrock in the head with a knee, knocking him senseless, as Violator gets up onto his knees to scurry away. Celestine then continues her assault as Badrock pleads with her to stop, stating that she's got the wrong guy. However, she refuses to listen, picking up Badrock over her head in a press slam, throwing him across the room, stating that he is now going to die and that the righteous fury of heaven is going to cleanse the earth of yet another evil hellspawn. We see Celestine launch Badrock across the room as he smashes through some equipment, and then she slowly walks over to grab her weapon. As she runs towards Badrock to unleash her final attack, Badrock pleads with her to stop. However, she refuses to listen, unleashing a fury of holy electrical energy, which harms Badrock greatly as he screams out in pain. And as he collapses to the ground, Celestine is actually kind of surprised that he wasn't killed and is still around at all. Like, normally, she states here that any type of demon is instantly vaporized by that attack, and she's actually rather impressed by how durable Badrock actually is. And as she stands above him, she aims her staff at his head, stating that she will vanquish the world of this evil and that the light will forever triumph over darkness. However, she's then interrupted when someone from behind says, "Yeah, right, lady," as she turns around in surprise. Also, most of these panels do not have fully fleshed out backgrounds. It's like this one is fully drawn in, this one's fully drawn in, and the rest are just colors. I mean, this is literally just Badrock and Celestine in front of purplish, like a mauve type of color. That's it. Nothing there. And still, a lot of negative space. I feel like Brian was taking a lot of liberties and shortcuts in drawing this to try and save time. Maybe he was behind the eight ball, but seems kind of lackluster. Of course, the person behind her was none other than the Violator, who has returned to his demon form as he grabs her, punches his hand straight through her body, and rips her heart clean out of her chest in one single motion. He then has her heart in his hand as he begins to taunt the angel, stating, "Hey, why don't we play charades? I got one. It's a one-word movie title starring Mickey Rourke and Robert De Niro," as Celestine tries to speak but is just gurgling. And Violator's all like, "Come on, you can do this one. This is an easy one," as she continues to gurgle and hold her chest as blood gushes forth. And she then collapses dead in front of him as Violator says, "Oh, come on, what a quitter," as he still holds her heart in his hand. And again, 2 full pages of no backgrounds drawn in any of the panels. It's just colors. Like, this is shortcuts at its highest level. Violator then stands triumphantly over Celestine's body, playing air guitar, saying breaking the law," in a Beavis and Butthead reference, as he states that, it's kind of a shame that the two of them couldn't have existed in another timeline, as he could have seen the two of them getting together, even though she's not really his type and could have used some mandibles. And he said, but, maybe she could have really done some stuff for him. Swing, in a reference to Wayne's World. This and the Beavis and Butthead reference probably would have been a lot more poignant in 1995 than they are today in 2024 when I'm recording this video. Violator then leans down, picks up Celestine's head, and says, "You know what? It probably would have never worked, though. You're too much more like my mom, domineering and brutal and dead," as he turns and leaves the room, stating that he's going to make his escape at this point, given that Badrock is down and the angel is dead. Also, the reference to his mother seems a little weird, as we learned in the Violator miniseries that his mother died giving birth to him, so he should have had no real recollection of who she was as a person. However, this, of course, may just be another one of Violator's lies, as he is a demon from hell, and he just kind of says whatever he wants or needs to say for the situation, or it could just be a mistake in storytelling. And as he leaves, we get a close-up of Celestine's face as she opens her eyes and is not quite as dead as Violator thought. Also, another editing mistake, and this one I'm not going to blame on Brian, this is more on the coloring team. All of Violator's speech bubbles are supposed to be this orangish red color here, but many of them are white, as they apparently just forgot to color them in. As Celestine brings herself up onto her hand, she realizes that her time is short, as she quickly manages to drag herself into the room that contains Dr. McAllister's interdimensional portal machine, blood pouring out of her the whole way. Although this does kind of show us how tough the angels are, as she's still managing to move and, think properly without a heart. She then drags herself up onto the machine, places her hands onto the 2 nodes to activate it, and unleashes all of the last remaining bits of her holy energy to power up the machine, stating that though she's dying, she's going to use one last act to try and defeat this evil creature of hell. As Badrock regains consciousness, he looks over to see Celestine's heart on the floor next to him, which grosses him out. He gets up to his feet, a little bit wobbly, picks up her staff, and as he's trying to get his bearings, Dr. McAllister runs into the room and asks what happened to the specimen, referring to the Violator, of course. Badrock explains that he escaped, but before he can tell Dr. McAllister that he's the one who freed Violator, she just assumes that it had to do with the Angel and says, "Oh, I know the Angel, she slugged me too." But she then says, we've got to get to the other room because the device has been activated. As the two of them run across the facility, she states that they've got to stop the Angel before she is able to get the Hellgate to open up. And Badrock's like, "All right, I'm right here with you." But when they get to the room, they realize they're too late, as Celestine is aglow in energy with both of her hands on the machine, getting it activated. And Badrock states, "Man, she looks extra crispy. We might want to wait until she's burned herself out." However, Dr. McAllister is like, screw her. I'm done now. Like, my experiment failed. There's no Hellgate. I'm going to lose all my funding. We lost the specimen. This is going to make the nightly news, and I'm going to have my entire career ruined by this. Badrock tries to comfort her, stating, "Listen, just because it didn't open up doesn't mean that the experiment was a failure. You can probably still fix this, and we can still track down the Violator. We've caught him before. We can catch him again." But Dr. McAllister is still pretty glum about the whole thing, stating that all of her calculations were correct and she can't figure out why the machine didn't work. Dr. McAllister and Badrock are then intercepted by some other workers at the facility who state that they saw Violator run by them towards the lobby, and he was laughing maniacally and seemed jovial, but then he came back from the lobby in a very bad mood, incredibly angry, and this confuses Badrock as he can't understand why Violator wouldn't have just left. So he states that he and Dr. McAllister are going to go investigate and that everyone else needs to stay inside. He then states, "I can't figure out why Violator wouldn't just leave." And Dr. McAllister states, "Who cares about him, man? Like, I'm dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff. Look at this facility." We also see that for some reason, both Dr. McAllister and Badrock have a leg missing that just wasn't drawn for some reason. Don't know why. As they reach the lobby area, Badrock states, "Oh, sorry, I wasn't thinking about, how this is affecting you. I'm going to go check outside. I want to know exactly what's going on and why the cops haven't showed up yet." Dr. McAllister tells him to do whatever he wants. At this point, she doesn't care. The facility's trashed. Her career is done for. The machine, of course, didn't work, and there was no interdimensional Hellgate opened, and everything's just going to hell in a handbasket. But Badrock, as he opens the door, states to Dr. McAllister, "Actually, I think you're kind of wrong on some of those points." We then see on the last page of the story, after Badrock opens the door, they look out to find out that the entire facility has been teleported to hell, as Badrock states, "Yeah, the machine worked, and you were wrong about us going to hell in a handbasket," as Dr. McAllister seems kind of surprised and beside herself at what she's looking at. On the next page, we see an advertisement for the Grifter Badrock team-up comic, and I don't know if I have any issues of this mini-series. I'll have to look. If I do, I'll make videos about it, and if I don't, I'll just have to keep an eye out for it and hope I come across it at some point in some dollar boxes. We then see a 2-page ad for Bloodpool, and I'm not sure if I have more than like a couple issues of Bloodpool or what issues of Bloodpool I even have. I'll have to go through my collection, and if I've got number 1 and maybe like, I don't know, a few more of the issues in sequence, I'll probably make some videos about Bloodpool just to get them out there at some point. But if not, and all I have is like, a random issue number 4 or something like that, I'll have to wait and track down an issue number 1 so I can kind of get going on Bloodpool as well. We then get an advertisement for McFarlane Toys, not Todd Toys in this issue, and it shows that the next incoming wave will feature figures from Spawn, Wetworks, and Youngblood. On the next page, we get an advertisement for Extreme Studios, for Youngblood, Berserkers, which I didn't realize there even was a Berserkers comic book. I'm going to have to try and find some of those because I'm positive I don't have a single issue of Berserkers. New Men, which I only have a handful of issues of, and again, like we stated, or like I stated in the previous part of the comic book, blood pool, and I don't know what I have of blood pool or how much. I'll have to check. We then get a 2-page ad, vertical, but again, it's an ad. I don't really care in this instance, for the Glory Evangeline team-up comic. I might have an issue of this randomly. I have very little Glory and almost no Evangeline. I think I have like 2 random issues of Evangeline. So I'm going to have to keep hunting for more books about these characters and try and track down this miniseries that I have literally none of to make videos on it at some point. But, in the meantime, keep your fingers crossed for me, guys. I could use the encouragement and the goodwill. We then get an ad for Riptide #1, Riptide's solo series, where it explains more about her backstory and what happens to her after she is expelled from Youngblood, and the Glory and Friends Bikini Fest, which, come on, guys, I can't believe they were doing this in the 90s. I get it, this was gonna sell, but it's the fact that they were just like, yep, this is what we're doing, and people are gonna buy it. No shame in our game. And on the reverse inside cover, we get an ad for the Create a Character Youngblood contest. This is where you could actually submit your own new character with a drawing and a description about their background and powers in 50 words or less. And the winner would be the next character to be inducted into the Youngblood comics and team, which this is actually a really cool contest. And I got to applaud Rob for doing something like this and giving his readers a chance to actually contribute to the book that they're subscribing to and buying every month. And that was Violator versus Badrock #2. Overall, I felt like the story of this book was just fine, and it works completely well with the first issue. But I really feel like the artwork as a whole was just kind of, I don't want to say lackluster, because what was drawn was fine, but what wasn't drawn was really distracting. I mean, it really feels like Brian Denham took a mountain of shortcuts and really slacked off in drawing this issue. I mean, as we can see here on the cover, there's no true background to the cover, and half of the book doesn't have backgrounds. It's kind of, crazy that Brian would put in so little effort. I mean, maybe he was busy with other things and this was kind of a rush job, but still, it just feels like, he was just kind of half-assing the whole thing. I could be wrong, but, to me, I kind of want every page of the book to be filled and, or at least mostly filled. I get it. Not everything needs a fully fleshed out background, but most of it should have that, at least in my opinion. But then again, that is just my opinion. Your opinion may be that everything looked fine and you could care less about the backgrounds. And if that's the case, it's okay, because everyone's entitled to their own opinions. If you enjoyed today's video, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks for stopping by. Have a great day.